Welcome back to Season 3 of The Stric. Today, we're talking to Josh Kligman, co-founder and CEO of Storyraise. In the next 20 minutes or so, we're going to cover how Josh's company helps support nonprofits in reaching the right donors, engaging the right audiences, and more. Welcome, and thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Bree.
First things first, can you give us a little bit of an overview of what you and your company does exactly?
Yeah, my name's Josh Kligman. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Storyraise, and we're a solution for nonprofits to create engaging digital reports.
Amazing. So we understand that storytelling is important, and we probably take it for granted, but you're not just sharing messages and stats. What made you decide to bring your skill set to the nonprofit world?
I think that there's a marketing aspect to the whole fundraising side and donor stewardship side where you want to find the most efficient and interesting way to tell your story to your donors and also your board, any stakeholders really that engages them a little bit further. There's so many distractions going on, especially amongst your donors, that there's got to be more interesting ways to highlight those stories, and it takes a lot of time. So we're trying to take a lot of the pain points away from that content development and making it look really good on the web.
What kind of time? Why does it eat up so much time? And how do you fix that problem?
Well, I was working at a national nonprofit before Storyraise, and we had maybe 10 to a dozen staff members and agency partners figuring out what we should write, who the story should be based around. And then it comes down to, hey, what does it look like? How do we get this out there to the world? And at the end of the day, it looked really good. The stories were excellent. The staff we worked with was great. I just always wondered in the back of my mind if it was leading to an increase in transparency for the donors, an increase in engagement for the donors, and an increase in the fundraising. So to do that in the past, it was a very expensive method to create web-based reports that are more engaging. It's just not that way anymore, and we're trying to make it more accessible.
Yeah, digital donor engagement. What do they need to know? What do they need to believe to take action?
I mean, storytelling basics is, as you and everyone on the Istrico team knows, is first and foremost, right? So with nonprofit annual reports and impact reports and even segmenting reports out for really important donors and doing one-on-one donor reports, the stories need to be based around the constituents that are benefiting from the funds that are, coming into the nonprofit. So, you have someone who donates a lot of money. They want to know how those funds are moving the needle. So, like, what is that impact doing? So, highlighting a person or a group of people and making it really personable, right, in the storytelling, I think is number one, and figuring out how to do that. You can have copy and you can have images, but what we try to do is consult with our customers to think about using multimedia as simple as existing videos you already have to help complement the text and the photos that you would normally put in there. And then try to take advantage of technology too with thinking about how to tell the story in a more engaging way.
Was the storytelling the skill you more had to learn and you really strong background in collecting in reports and data, or is it the reverse?
I think it's the presentation, packaging it up that I really love. And that's where my background is. My background's been in marketing my whole career, whether it was at a nonprofit or in corporate marketing or on the agency side. My partner, my co-founder, our CMO, has been doing nonprofit storytelling his whole career, Jeff Rum, and that's how he's really been coaching his nonprofit clients at agencies he's running now with Storyraise. But when you're thinking about technology and introducing that, it could just make the whole process so much faster, and then it makes it a little bit more accessible. So you can have nonprofits that are doing 5, 10, $15 million a year that never could create reports like this, all of a sudden being able to do it, not just with our technology, but in general. But I'm thinking about how to make mobile friendly reports, right? So that you open up like any PDF on a cell phone normally, and that's how reports, after they were printed, everyone said, oh, our reports are now digital because they're sitting in a PDF. But you open that up on a cell phone and you really have to pinch and zoom in to read all the words. That's not responsive, and that's not a best practice for today. Best practice for today is that your website or anything that you're sending out to someone is automatically being reformatted on a mobile device, right? Or a tablet so you don't have to zoom in, and so that you're presenting all the content and all those assets the way you want them to read it. If you have like a, let's say like a letter you're sending to someone, an opening letter in an impact report, you might have on your website a photo, and then there's a letter, and then there's a signature. Maybe there's even a video there. You should be able to choose how you want that to look on your cell phone and market it and present it the way that you need to. So that's what we always recommend, and that's one way that technology can kind of do that for you, so you don't have to spend so much time and effort finding ways to make it happen. It's easier these days.
What's the balance between making sure it comes from the heart, will reach humans, will make sense, and trying to speed things up and speed that process so that people can get the information faster in the first place?
Yeah, just speeding up the process with today's best practices versus something that was kind of a nice to have maybe ten years ago. But when it comes to AI, that can also help speed things up. I think that's in the creation of what everything looks like in terms of design and maybe with writing. But yeah, it's got to have the human touch. So with writing and coming up with the ideas, I'm still a big fan of doing that yourself, where I like to use AI as if you were going to say, oh, I was going to communicate something to all my nonprofit donors, and I want to give them all a message, but it has to have a personal touch. I might draft some copy that, package something up that looks really similar to all of them, but I'd segment out my audiences. So maybe 250 of them are like my highest tier donors, and maybe 500 of them are somewhere in the middle. And then the final 250 are on the lower end donors, or maybe it's by interest level. I would send them all slightly different versions of the same thing, whether it's a video, an annual report, maybe it's, a social media paid marketing campaign, right? So segmenting out the audience and taking your time to think of the creative, but using AI to do the segmentation and the tracking of all the metrics. I think that's where you can get the human touch, like you're asking about, and then still speed up the process.
Mhm. Well, speaking of tracking the metrics, I mean, I imagine the most successful campaign is more money for these nonprofits, but are there any other measures that you look at that you'd consider the campaign a success?
Yeah, we're about to launch a book at Storyraise called the Six Steps to Impactful and Engaging Reporting. And one of the things that we talk about in this book, and that we're starting to coach our customers on, and I say coach because we like to be really hands on with them, even if they're creating reports themselves. But one of those is tracking engagement. And there's lots of ways that you can track engagement. I think engagement is part of donor retention, and donor retention with nonprofits is famously low compared to corporations. So if I started a company that was like offering subscriptions for, I'll grab something near me like pens, right? And every month you're going to get like a new fancy pen in the mail. You're going to pay $10 a month, and the pens will just keep coming. I lost a few of those customers. There's a certain amount that I wouldn't want to lose because it would be considered best practice to stay above, like 90%. But nonprofits are much, much lower. In recent years, they've been down in like the 40s, like 45%. So the more you engage them, the more it can help with customer retention. But the engagement specifically comes down to the communication pieces. So when someone opens like an annual report or impact report or even a newsletter, you can look in your email to see who opens it, who clicks it. But when it's sitting there on the screen, it's about the number of times that they're clicking in the report. If you have 8 sections in a table of contents in a report, and someone clicks 8 times, that's great. Looking at the amount of time someone spends on a report doesn't really do it, because someone could speed through a report and really get it like that, right? And be done with the entire report in 60 seconds, be really engaged. They click every section. You may send me a report. Maybe I open it up and then on my desktop, and then my doorbell rings and I walk away, and it's there for an hour and a half. And you say,
Mhm.
oh, Josh spent 90 minutes looking at my report. This is great. Going to lunch next week. He's going to donate $1 million to our nonprofit. In reality, maybe I didn't even see, past the first section. So the number of clicks is a big metric that we want to look at,
Mhm.
because it shows, that deep engagement.
Yeah, having not known that, there's a lot of companies that think I really love them with my open tabs and open emails habit.
No, but they're great examples of really segmenting your audience and targeting, and just like advertisers will do that to us, I think that nonprofits have that opportunity to segment out their donors, like I was saying before, and then personalize the messages. And the more you can give that custom touch, the more they'll feel it. And that's a big part of the engagement. And you'll see those results in the metrics if you do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so measuring the metrics, I know that you work with not slightly, maybe large nonprofits mostly,
Yeah, medium and large size, exactly.
medium and large
Yeah.
size. So, do they kind of all just have the same pain point, the same problem, and that's why they come to you? Or is each person unique and you sort of have to look at what they're dealing with?
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap with very, very similar pain points. It's the slow manual process of getting it all done. We work with a lot of organizations that want to create personalized reports, and every report looks different. So we've developed a way to automate the whole process. So instead of manually mapping things from Excel, cells and different sheets and stuff, you could just hook it up to your CRM, and then like that, you can map all the data. So you asked about AI and speeding things up, like that's a big one. So that's a big pain point that we see at a lot of larger size nonprofits. Overall, it's just the time you put in and not knowing what the metrics are at the end, knowing that there could be something a little more dynamic out there. And it's not just reports like I keep talking about. I mean, website does the same thing. Social media content's the same in terms of what you're generating. And it's really hard, especially on social, to keep the interesting stories going, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a loud crowd
Yeah,
to sit
exactly.
through.
Yeah, I've been
Yeah.
hearing a lot lately about using content to talk to the audience you really, really, really are focused on and championing that. And I think that's something that I see some nonprofits do, really, really well, like talking to, just those donors or those people that are interested in that topic. So if you're a food bank or a shelter and you just are focusing on certain needs by season, the people that, really care about that are going to gravitate towards your content. First, trying to be like something for everybody and trying to get a million people to like your social media post or engaged with your brand, but 90% of those people may not be your target audience anyway. So it's, sometimes wasted.
Hmm. You said you and or your partner have come from a nonprofit background. Did that inform the start of this company?
Yeah, we both have nonprofit experience. I was working at a nonprofit, and my co-founder was working for at a nonprofit years ago. Most recently, for nonprofits, doing digital marketing for them. We met up one day, and we both kind of discovered this need for wanting to create more engaging reports and spend less time doing it, but not having to spend tens of thousands of dollars with a custom version of it, which was the only way you can get it done at that time. He presented this idea to me at the Silver Diner in Bethesda, and we just started talking and talking, and then all of a sudden signed up about 12 nonprofit customers, and then COVID hit, so we had to try to reset and figure out how we're going to grow this into a business, put together a game plan, and now we're working with Goodwill and University of Maryland and 4-H, a lot of community foundations and nonprofits all over the world.
4-H is a wonderful client and we love working with them. I've been sent to a couple of farms in my day working with them, and that is always
Me
fun.
too, all over the country.
What's the biggest mistake that nonprofits make?
Well, it's not really on the nonprofits, but nonprofits are famously understaffed. I don't necessarily have an answer to the problem, but taking on less might sometimes produce more. I think that when there's 100 projects on a team's plate, it's really hard because you have maybe 20 people trying to take on the work of a 40 or 50. Something I always tried to do, even working at a nonprofit, was just kind of narrow my focus and slow down a bit, really in any job I've ever had.
Yeah, that's the endless challenge is assigning one person to one thing to do really well. And especially I would imagine in the nonprofit world, people are there for a good reason and they have a passion and an expertise. So if we could round up these numbers a little faster and they don't have to dig into the nitty-gritty, and then they could keep sort of a bird's eye view of larger trends, that would probably be helpful.
Yeah, and you're right. They're there for a reason, like that they really want to be there, and a lot of times, especially with smaller nonprofits, people want to take on more because they're that much more passionate about it. Especially if you're talking about a founder of a nonprofit, it's almost impossible to tell any founder to slow down because they do want to take on more. So it's not a fault. I think it's just the nature of the beast.
Right.
So So Storyraise has full creative service department where we'll help organizations with digital fundraising campaigns and other digital assets that they need created. So sometimes we'll complement their team, and sometimes we'll build everything for them from, the campaign and then do the actual execution. And then we have our technology for reports, where sometimes we'll come in and help nonprofit customers create the report and work on the design.
Are there any current trends that you're finding are more effective or at least grabbing people's attention?
Video's really the biggest trend I see that's helping nonprofits make more engaging impact and annual reports. And it's helping steward donors a little more in depth of a way, specifically videos that are opening up reports instead of just a letter from the head of the organization, and then video highlighting the constituents.
That's convenient for us as
Yeah.
video makers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think some of the really creative ways that nonprofits that we're working with are finding to engage donors are almost creating unique use cases that have always worked for them, but they're using technology to make it more seamless or go faster. So, for instance, organizations will take technology that StoryRaise has, which is really built to create reports, and design proposals or newsletters, and then include video or a case for giving and ask for donations inside reports. And we didn't sit around thinking of those use cases or develop our solutions to be able to do that. But nonprofits just see the opportunity to take something that they're, I guess, paying for anyway, and finding more ways to, make juice out of it, right?
Yeah, remold it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's really resourceful and creative. And I'm jealous I didn't think about it, but that gives us an opportunity to make more templates for them and help them, do it more. They're doing all the great work. We're just kind of here to support them.
I love that. Well, you are a busy person and we are over time, but I just want to say thank you so much for jumping on and giving us some insight into your world. It's great to know that this kind of work is being done for nonprofits, and we at Istrico obviously love working with you and nonprofits any chance we get. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And thank you for listening to The Stric. If you have any thoughts, we'd love to hear them. Comment here, on Instagram, or LinkedIn. This is a podcast from Istrico Productions. We'll see you all in 2 weeks.